Couple more minutes and we'll get started.
Okay.
Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started since it's 11 o'clock and there's a lot of information to go forward with. So welcome to this week's Purdue at Westgate webinar series. My name is Samantha Nelson and I am the program manager for the Purdue Foundry here at the Purdue Foundry at Westgate. We at Purdue at Westgate strive to promote business and talent growth, and we want to help support you as a startup, a business, or academia. We strive to be that regional hub of connection and support. Purdue at Westgate is located within the Westgate Academy. The Westgate Academy is a technology incubator, training, and office conference center that is located within the Westgate at Crane Technology Park, which happens to be directly outside the gates of the Naval Support Activity Center in Crane, Indiana. We would like to thank our March webinar series sponsor, GeoConvergence, formerly known as 39 Degrees North. GeoConvergence is a co-working member at our Lock and Key co-working space here within the Westgate Academy. They provide geospatial intelligence and GIS solutions for commercial, higher education, state, and federal governments. Make sure you visit them on their website for more information at geoconvergence.com. Today, we are excited to be hosting a webinar with Amy Brown, CEO of Authenticx. I was introduced to Amy by Sarah Croft of Innovate Map. Amy is a client of Innovate Map, which is out of Indianapolis, Indiana. Innovate Map has helped Amy's team to understand their market, competition, and users through in-depth research and analysis. Amy will provide you with more of her journey, but I will tell you that she left corporate America after 20 years in the healthcare industry. She is seeking to bring the voice of the patient into the boardroom and increase positive healthcare outcomes. I will also tell you that she won the Rising Entrepreneur Award in 2020 during TechPoint's annual Mira Award ceremony, honoring the best in tech in her company. It is her company Authenticx is also nominated for this year's Startup of the Years. So we are extremely excited to have her on today. We ask that you mute your microphones, and if comfortable, you can turn your videos on during the presentation. Please feel free to use the chat function at the bottom of your screen to ask questions, and Amy will answer these at the end of the presentation. Just a reminder that the presentation and a recording of this presentation will be sent to you via email following the presentation. I'm sure you're anxious to hear Amy present, so with no further ado, I present Amy Brown.
Thank you, Samantha. It's great to be here. Hello, everyone. Nice to be connecting with you over Zoom today. So what I have planned today is actually to share a very personal story around my journey as a tech founder and leading a startup. But I want you to know that as I share this, I do so with both a sense of humility and humbleness, and also with the perspective that my journey is unique to myself and not necessarily a playbook or a formula or a roadmap for anybody else. However, I've experienced enough kind of roadblocks and learnings that I think may be helpful. I hope you will find helpful on whatever journey you may find yourself on. And so you don't have to be a tech founder or in a startup situation to be on a journey. And that's what I hope comes out of this meeting. This is really for you. So I hope my sharing somehow resonates with you in some way. Now, I really prefer a more interactive environment, and I know our circumstances really don't allow for that, but I am going to ask something of you during this presentation. I'm not going to ask you to speak up during the presentation, but I am going to be posing to you some personal reflective questions throughout my presentation today. And so I would ask that you maybe grab a notebook or your tablet, whatever you might want, because I'm going to be taking moments to ask you a question and have you reflect, take a moment to write or jot some notes down. So I'm going to make it as interactive that way as possible. Now, in order to start, I'd like to give you a little context about who Authenticx is. We're really big about context here and setting the stage. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and get right to it. Sorry. So Authenticx, we are a SaaS business-to-business company, and our whole mission is to help healthcare listen at scale. And what does that really mean? It means our platform takes in those bi-directional customer conversations that are happening all day, every day, usually in contact centers. They might be emails, chats, or phone calls, but they are largely recorded and ignored by the healthcare industry. So we take those into our platform and we listen. We listen using technology and also enabling humans to listen more efficiently and effectively to derive the most meaningful insights that are actionable by the leaders that utilize our platform and to drive patient outcomes over time. So that's just a little bit about who we are. And in February of 2020, this is what life looked like at Authenticx. Let's all think back to what February of 2020 was like, right? We had just started the new year. And at Authenticx, we had just signed the lease on a brand new office. We had a whopping 5 full-time and 7 part-time team members. We had a growing pipeline of healthcare clients. And we were just starting our first fundraising seed round of capital. And then on March 13th, for us at least, everything changed. And probably like the rest of you, we went home, we held our breath, we watched the news, and I, as a founder, wondered, whether we would make it through the storm that was about to hit the country. And then I got a call. It was from a prospect that had not yet become a client. And this was the question that he asked me. You see, this client was in the revenue cycle management business for health and hospital systems. Their job was to help patients kind of pay their bills in an expedited fashion. But they knew that the circumstances of the pandemic were going to cause them to really need to pivot some things. And so they were urgently needing our help on understanding what their customers needed. And so within a matter of days, it was really over a weekend, we ingested thousands of their customer call recordings into our platform. And this is a little bit of what we heard.
We were wondering if you were able to make that payment.
I'm not able to do that right now with everything that's been going on. I'm going to try to put some little bit every chance I get to it. But at this moment, I don't have any cash to be able to give because I don't know what's going to happen or where my next check's going to come from.
Tuesday, and I don't even know if my company is going to be closing, or I don't know what's going to happen. I'll have to wait on that.
Would you like to set up a payment plan?
I will when I get back into working because of the coronavirus and can't go around.
So these are just 3 customer voices from that set of data that we had ingested into our system. But really what it did was represented a pretty dramatic trend that had happened literally overnight in the conversations happening in this client's contact center. And when they saw the data, the 40%, right, they said, wow, that's a lot. But it was when they listened to these actual customer voices that they felt moved to action, right? And so it was the combination of listening and the data, the statistics that allowed them the information needed to take very robust action. They changed their payment policies overnight. They extended grace periods and essentially worked with all their upstream and downstream partners to rise to the occasion of the pandemic, helping their business survive, but also giving grace to their customer base. And what I knew as a founder in this moment was 2 things. The first was that Authenticx was going to make it through the pandemic because our clients really needed us to help them get through it. And the second thing I knew was this. Once our clients hear the real voice of their customer, they can't unhear it. That is what, that power of listening is what compels our clients in corporate America to action. So really that's what we're going to be talking about today, is this idea of the power of listening. And it's going to be more personal, right? But I've built a business around the power of listening and specifically to patient and customer voices in healthcare. And we've seen the dramatic impacts it can have on leaders who are wanting to make change in their organization. But today we're going to talk a little bit about how listening has been a key ingredient on my journey as a founder. And I'm also going to encourage you to think about how listening might be important to your own journey. So I'm going to just pause for a minute from the PowerPoint and talk about how this kind of started for me. It actually started 3.5 years prior to me deciding to found Authenticx. At that time, I had just launched my own baby product. It was a side hustle for me. And I actually got it all the way into big box retail. Additionally, I had left kind of a large corporate environment and had gotten my taste at my first startup. I wasn't an owner, but I was employee number 2, right? And so as I was getting this real live taste of startup life, both with my own baby product and with a startup that I had just joined, I started to really fall in love with entrepreneurship. I was getting a chance to build a business from scratch. I was selling, I was doing operations, and it felt so good. And so I tried to make it mine. I spent several years working with the founder and the business owner, hoping and working to be able to kind of turn the business from one where I was an employee into one where I was a partner. And for reasons I will not go into or bother you with today, that just didn't happen, right? It didn't happen. And it was painful because I had kind of poured my heart and soul and allowed this company to become my baby. But I decided that the seed had been planted for me of entrepreneurship, and I decided to leave so that I could create some space and really start to think about how would I get started at founding my own business. So that really took me to this role of a chief operating officer at a company that was much bigger. It was a global travel medical insurance company. And had I just jumped from the startup into founding Authenticx, I would have missed the opportunity that was afforded to me at the COO role at this insurance company. There, I was able to lead the company through a massive turnaround of their customer experience, taking them from sub 1 star on Google to 4 stars within a matter of months. I was the first female executive in the company's history, and I was able to infuse a new sense of customer experience passion within the business. And so I'm really grateful for that, which really takes me to my first lesson that I want to share with you. As I share my screen. And that is this. The first lesson that I've learned is the power of listening to the seasons in your life, right? So there is a time to be patient. There is a time for accepting unanswered wishes, which is what I was feeling at that startup. There is an importance to trusting the timing that is coming to you on things. And so I look back on that period of time where I wanted so badly for that startup to be mine. And I realized that I might not be here today had that wish at that time come true. And so here's the first reflection question that I have for you. So everybody take a moment. The first question I have is, what areas of your journey right now do you wish to be different in your life? And do you feel yourself in a season of action or in a phase of patience right now? What season are you in? I'm going to give you maybe 30 seconds to think about this question. Jot a note about it. What season do you feel yourself in right now? Is it a time for patience, a time for action? Okay. So I'm at this large company. I've had some success. We actually were recognized for an international award in customer experience. From a very personal perspective, I was at the height, the kind of the pinnacle of my earning, my compensation package. I had never made more money. And just to give you some context of my personal life, I am the single breadwinner, and I have a family of 4 children and a husband. My husband has been an incredible teammate to me, but when we were having our first child, we decided that he was going to stay at home and help with that part of our life, so that I could really take off on my career. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is to say that the call to entrepreneurship was ever present in my brain, even as I was being, we were successful at 7 Corners, which is the company that I was the COO at. Even as my compensation hit a level that I never thought that it would before, even after all these successes, it would not leave me alone. I knew that I had to take action, and that required a tremendous amount of listening to my inner voice and also getting clear on what does success really look like for me. And I came to realize through listening to that achieving these corporate ladder things were just not fulfilling me. And in fact, I think that a lot of us, especially those of us who are parents, tell ourselves things all the time, like, in order to be a good parent, I need to have a secure environment, a secure financial security for my family. I need to provide so that they don't want, which is nothing wrong with that, right? But the thought occurred to me during this journey, as I was really contemplating whether I take the leap or not, that maybe being a good mom also means showing to your children that you are willing to take risks in order to fulfill your own dreams. And so that's what I decided to do. My husband and I made the decision that I was going to walk out the doors of corporate America and start Authenticx. Now, I didn't just do that immediately, right? I wanted to be very intentional about it. I'm an outdoors person. I love backpacking and hiking, so I love this picture. This picture is all about preparation for a journey. And so one thing that I learned during this process is how to really listen intently to advisors and yourself and your experience on what you're going to need for your journey forward. When you decide to take a leap, preparation is key. And so even after I knew that I was going to leave my role, I knew that I needed to get my house in order effectively in order to do that. So we took about 6 months. And as I continued to work, we saved, right? We saved money. We reorganized our lifestyle. We had conversations with our kids about how life was going to change a little bit because mommy was going to be chasing her dream, right? And so we all needed to chip in to allow that to happen. And then, I started talking with advisors and people who were going to help me on my journey. The key things to listen for, at least from my experience, when you feel like you want a change in your life, is listening for signs of readiness for action. One of those signs for me was, is it persistently calling you? Is this need for change persistently present in your mind? Second, it should feel like a calling, not an obligation. Such that if you know you need to make sacrifices to make it happen, that those sacrifices don't hurt, they actually feel good. And then the third is really listening to your past experience and advisors around you to take the time to plan and act with intention, because it's worth it. So this leads me to my next reflection question for you. And that is, what is one area in your life right now where the season is ripe for action? And what is one thing you can do to help prepare the way for action? Take a moment to think about that. Where is one area that the season is ripe for action, and what can you do to help prepare the way for action? Now, like all great adventures, right? When you're getting ready to start on an adventure or a new venture, you get yourself pepped up. And I certainly did that. I surrounded myself with sayings around being brave. I surrounded myself with a support network that, that was cheering me on. And I had a lot of farewell and fanfare that sent me off from corporate America into into this great leap of faith that I was taking. And this is how I felt on my last day in my corporate gig. Now, by a show of hands, use your chat or your emojis. Who all has ever felt like this? Like they were just starting on their journey, and maybe it was a new venture, maybe it was a new adventure, maybe you were traveling, and you felt like you were, ready to go, super powered. Has anybody ever felt that way? Show of hands. I'm seeing them come in. Thank you. Yeah, it's a adrenaline rush, right? Here's what after you take that leap forward, here's what it felt like for me. Now, I love this GIF because it perfectly depicts what it's like to have a startup. At first, you feel like you're flying and you're kind of thinking, oh, wow, this is fun. And then you start to get scared, and then invariably something whacks you, right? And that is absolutely what startup life is like, especially in the early days where it's you, yourself, and silence, right? I was, as a COO, I was used to being inundated all day, every day with people who needed me, and I needed to respond, and I had back-to-back meetings all the time. And suddenly I'm in silence, right, with crickets. And I had to start to put myself together in terms of doing outbound contacts to potential clients and advisors and networks. And it was a very different feeling. And definitely there were times of not sure if I was actually flying or falling. Now, one part about my journey that that is maybe different from some other tech founders is that I did not start by, hey, I've got an idea and I'm going to go raise some money. Okay. And that's because it was super important to me that my idea even had value in the marketplace. And so I used some of my bonus savings and hired a freelance developer to build on a low-code platform, a prototype, an MVP. And with that alone, I started the sales process, and I was able to land a few beta clients. And in that process, I learned a ton about what actually was providing value to my clients and what I had imagined would provide value that actually didn't. And so if there's any part in this presentation where I actually feel compelled to give advice, this would be it. My advice is around whenever you're starting something new, you might have a grand idea and vision. In fact, that's super important and necessary to have a vision for where and how big you want it to go. But start in very small, achievable, bite-sized steps and iterate time and time again. Had I gone off in a corner and raised a bunch of money and took my idea and hired an engineering team to build out the perfect platform and then decided to go see how the market responded, I would have wasted so much effort and money and time because I hadn't yet taken the time to listen to the market and the feedback that I was getting in those early days. It is so important to listen to your clients and iterate on your idea over and over again. And for us, what that meant was we had this platform, but there was a lot of manual effort going into making the outcome what we wanted our clients to see. But that manual effort, as we saw what was getting attraction from our clients, that is what fueled our product roadmap. And we said, hey, we're doing this manually. Clients are loving it. we understand now what they want out of it. Now we're going to go productize it. And so that's really how I got started. And you know, I would just say the importance of listening to your clients early on in a new venture is critically important before you invest too much energy and time and other people's money into building something out. So about 6 months after we founded Authenticx and we had some early beta clients, I found myself facing kind of a fork in the road moment. And I'm sure you all have had fork in the road moments. And this was it for me as I pull it up. So I could see we were getting traction, and I could see that this idea had legs, right? And I needed to decide as a founder, do I want to grow slowly and steadily and own the majority of my business and you know, kind of build out as we gained revenue? Or do I want to grow more rapidly and, you know, meet the market where I think the market is in terms of readiness? Do I want this to be a services business where we hold all the secret sauce on a platform? Or do we want to share our platform with the world and really become a SaaS business? And so with that, I did a lot of listening to advisors and clients and a lot of listening to the market. I think a very important part of success in startup life is not so much the value of the product, but really the readiness of the market to buy the product, right? And so it was all of those things that I was listening for when I was approaching this fork in the road moment. So my next question for you for personal reflection is there a fork in the road that you're facing right now? And if so, what name would you give to it? What fork in the road moment might you be facing right now? And how would you name it? So for me, the path we chose, hopefully it's obvious by now, is we chose to grow fast and you know, build out a SaaS business. And really why I chose that path was because I could see, and by listening to the market, that the market was ready for this kind of technology, that our clients were eager to utilize you know, our platform. And we were seeing growth within our existing clients. To give you a sense of it, we had one client that grew 600% from year 1 to year 2 in terms of how much they were investing in our technology. And so, and that client is a top 10 pharmaceutical company. So we knew that this product had a real demand in the marketplace. But of course, in order to grow rapidly, I needed capital. And so that started my very first ever fundraise experience. And let me tell you, this was not my favorite part of the job of being a founder. It was like a full-time sales position, only you're working to meet venture capital firms and not potential clients. Ultimately, we were successful in raising our first seed round of capital. We actually closed on it last July. It was an oversubscribed round. And here's why I think we were successful at such an early stage at raising money. The first is we had some early traction with actual paying clients. We knew the problem that we were trying to solve because we founded this company based on industry expertise. We had happy clients, and I had a great, amazing set of advisors that I trusted to tell me like it is. And so one of the biggest lessons for me during this phase was surrounding myself with people who I trust and who I'm willing to listen to. So my reflection question for you on this topic of listening is, who are you listening to right now? And who is the best advice giver in your life? Who is the best advice giver in your life? Have you listened to them recently? And have you thanked them lately? So fast forward to here we are today. Now I like this image here, nothing replaces listening. It's our mantra for 2021. But I hope as you look at this image that you're sensing a sense of busyness and noise and maybe a little chaos, and maybe it looks a little maze-like. And I think this image perfectly reflects what life at Authenticx is like today from a listening perspective. And I'm speaking as a founder in a scale-up when I say this. And why am I saying that? Well, remember how I said when I first started the business and I took that leap, I went from being inundated with noise in my corporate environment to being completely on my own, silent and hearing crickets. Well, that's not the case anymore, right? Today we have clients with needs that are asking for innovation and new things out of our product every day. Today, I have a board of advisors and I have a board of directors and shareholders that bring a lot of advice and experience and wisdom to the table. The stakes are higher, right? The stakes are higher in our business right now. There are mandates to grow even more than we are today. And we have a brand new, beautiful product that we launched into the marketplace. So we're off our MVP low-code platform. But you know, there's lots of voices surrounding me as a founder today. And I pride myself on being a really good listener to those voices. But the lesson I'm currently learning and leaning into is not to dial down my own internal voice too much. It's super easy to do that when you're scaling a business and when you're surrounded by stakeholders that have literally a stake in your business. And it's super important to listen to those voices. But it's also important to keep in touch with that spark, and that intuition that caused you to start the business in the first place. And so if you feel yourself ever surrounded by advice and opinions and all kinds of things to listen to, I would encourage you to actually go internal a bit and lean into your authentic voice. And so my last reflection question for you is, where do you need to lean into listening to your authentic self? Where is your voice internally, at least, not loud enough? And where is listening to your gut more important than ever? To me, the older I've gotten in my career and the more risk I've taken, the more I have valued this point here is listening and identifying who your true authentic voice is, and making sure that no matter what adventure you're on and no matter what stage of growth or season of life you're in, that you're really listening intently to your authentic self. And if you do that, then not only have I found that success will come, but success will come in a way that is most fulfilling because you know that it is true to who you are. So with that, I have concluded my formal presentation, Samantha, and I would love to just have some dialogue with the audience. If anyone either has questions or wants to share things that came up for them during this presentation.
Yeah, there were a couple of great comments on the chat. Of course, you talked about design thinking and validation. So those are always great points to talk about. And I know the phrase "nothing replaces listening" is now something I think all of us will probably put on a piece of paper and either carry it with us somewhere or put it somewhere near us so we can see it. So I think it's certainly an insightful phrase for all of us to take a look at. I personally, and of course, we'll ask everyone else here to have some conversation, but there were so many points in there that I just totally related to, from a professional, from a mother, from a team player. There was just your reflection questions hit dead on. And I don't know, some of you may know, but we have a program here at Purdue Foundry called Firestarter, which resonated out of the West Lafayette Purdue campus. And we now have a satellite version here at Westgate. And those are questions that we'll be asking within our cohorts now. They're just really great, insightful questions to think about. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any thoughts? There is a question from John Laughlin. Do you have a favorite entrepreneurship related book that's left an impact on your philosophy / trajectory?
Oh, there's so many books that are helpful to me. Thank you for your question, John. There's a couple that I'll mention. The first, I'm looking at my my bookshelf over there to see if it's there, if I've taken it off. The first one is a Brené Brown book called Rising Strong. I see Bridget cheering. That's great. I love Brené Brown, generally speaking. She is a researcher, and a lot of our business is about research. But what I really love about her is that she just gets straight to the heart of how to figure out who you really are and how to let go of, through vulnerability, how to let go of baggage that holds you down and keeps you from being your authentic self. Starting a business of any kind is no joke. It is the biggest test in your own sense of self-confidence, and you've got to be really dialed into who you really are in order to have the fortitude to keep going. And so I'd say the Brené Brown book really helped me with that. And then there's another book called Authentic Leadership, put out by Wiley. And that book is really helpful because it really breaks down kind of the work of figuring out how to live your authentic life. And it's not people say, oh, just be yourself. Well, in order to just be yourself, you have to figure out what baggage you adopted over the last 10, 20 years to survive in the environments we've been in, whether it's a corporate environment or a family environment or whatever. And the older I get, the more I realize that life and wisdom is more about taking things off, like, dropping baggage and unlearning things that you have learned all along as coping mechanisms. And so I've really found that book to be helpful in making sure that the work that we're doing at Authenticx is really true to the mission of why we started this, and it's been really helpful for me to make sure that I'm staying authentic to who I am as a leader.
Great. Any other questions? I'm sure Amy will also be able to provide you with her contact information in case you want to be able to ask her some questions down the road. So any other questions?
Bridget has a question.
Oh, sure. Oh, can hear you, Bridget.
Sorry.
There you go.
Okay. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first I have to make a comment that I absolutely love the bunny and your background, Amy. I think it's adorable. I'm a huge animal lover, so if anyone knows me, they can see why I may enjoy that. But
Uh-oh.
Well, you went on mute, Bridget.
Okay, we'll try this again. I'm sorry. No, I just wanted to thank you, Amy. I think the content that you have shared today is so incredible and helpful and guiding, especially being in a startup myself. Like, I'm the second employee here where I am. So thank you so much. I just wanted to ask, like, what is one thing that you do to kind of, stay connected with yourself and listen to your inner voice? Is it exercising? Is it finding a podcast you really love? Finding a creative outlet? You mentioned learning how to take things off of your plate, which is a big thing, and that makes sense. So maybe what's just one thing that you have learned that you like to practice regularly to keep your authentic voice?
What a great question, Bridget. Thank you. And thank you for commenting on my bunny. I'm also an animal lover. In addition to my 4 kids, we have a dog, a cat, and a bunny at home. So, we went all in on the zoo life at home. And congratulations on being employee number 2 in a startup. That takes a ton of courage. And all hats to you. I'm sure you could teach me a few things for sure. One of the things that I found most helpful is to create an intentional space for silence. As much as I've talked about listening to different voices, in order to really observe, ingest or absorb voices, whether it's an internal voice or an external voice, you need to create space, white space. You need to create silence. And that's so very, very rare in today's world, with being so dialed in and connected all the time. So one practice that has really helped me is it's usually very early in the morning, but it doesn't have to be for anybody else. But for me, it's very early in the morning before anybody is awake in my house, and I just kind of practice the centering, and it's silent. There's no music, there's nothing, and it's usually about 15 minutes. But I have found that to be incredibly clarifying and helpful to prepare my brain for the deluge that's coming for me in the day ahead. And it does create space for remembering, who am I and why am I doing this? And then, of course, you mentioned exercise. I would consider exercise as a key ingredient in surviving startup life, not because of the physical benefits, which of course there are those, but really for the mental benefit of it. It's just extremely helpful.
What a great answer. And as soon as you started talking about, these thoughts that we have in our mind that we're hearing constantly, we may not even realize we're absorbing it, drew me to this incredible poem that I shared with one of those people that's been a big advisor to me. I shared this poem with her last week, and it talks about how the voices inside of us, they're not all ours. And so being able to realize that the thoughts that you have about yourself or who you are and how you act, they're not all yours. Those were things that you heard maybe from parents or friends or society. So really honing in on what is your true voice. And so that's a really interesting poem in a book. I'll share that in the chat because it's pretty good. It's called Inquire Within. So I think if you guys like poetry, you may enjoy it.
Thank you. I love that. If no one else has any questions for me, I'm going to ask a question of you, and that is there one takeaway that about listening that you might bring from this that would serve as feedback for me, but also just I'm just curious. You're all business people, and I heard Samantha mention a couple of takeaways, but is there anything else that stood out to you that is a takeaway for you today? We have shy people.
We have shy people. It seems like it. Oh, here comes John.
I have a takeaway. I really liked how mindful and intentional you were in figuring out how you wanted to grow Authenticx once you had traction. I think the fork in the road image in that situation is it's a great illustration of how you could either kind of grow it slowly in a very controlled way, but maybe stifle some of your growth, or you heard the market and you decided that you were going to take more of a risk on growth approach. I thought that was a really cool part of your presentation, and I'm really glad you shared it.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that.
Good. Any other questions for Amy? I see one comment from Jonathan Coffey is speak less, listen more, be true to yourself. So
Love it.
Yeah, it seems to be a good message for today. So
Love it. Thanks, John.
Well, we want to thank Amy so much for providing this presentation, providing her insight and her journey with us. Extremely interesting, extremely reflectful, I think, for all of us. We also want to thank GeoConvergence for being the March webinar series sponsor. So we appreciate them. I see that they were on this call as well. So we appreciate that. So we want to just let you know that there are other webinars like this, future webinars and past webinars that we are having. So go on to westgate-academy.com and look up on the events tab, and you'll be able to see the future webinars as well as listen to the past recordings of the webinars that we have done. So appreciate everybody for joining this Zoom call today. Amy, Beth O'Cool, who also was a part of the Authenticx team, has been a big part of this. So thank you, Wanda, for joining. We can't wait to get back into in-person events. So when we get to that point, which I think is in the near future, we will definitely be reaching out to you so you can come and we can all talk and be together in one area. So thank you, everyone, and hope everyone has a great week.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.